What's up, friend? Thanks so much for joining me again for an amazing Pilates workout. Let's begin in a tall torso seated position, legs extended out in front of the body, a big arm breath as we exhale into this forward fold stretch. Taking a few breaths, a few big inhales and exhales, settling in and releasing the tension in the hamstrings and the posterior chain. Slowly returning to seated, and again with a large arm sweep as we exhale into forward fold. And from here, I'll be releasing my right arm to extend behind the body, opening through the chest, returning to the inside of my leg, doing the same thing on the left side, and returning back to center. A few more times, alternating sides. Returning to center and releasing those hands from the feet, coming back up into a seated position, and we'll move into our next exercise from here as I slowly lower myself onto the mat into a supine position, getting comfortable and walking my feet back a step, creating less space between my heels and hips. Interlacing fingers, place them behind the head. Take an inhale at the bottom, and on your next exhale, we're holding this crunch as we breathe out our air and coming back down on the inhale to reset. Wonderful job. We're warming up the core. We're going to add an extra element here in just a moment, but you're more than welcome to stay in this layer one space and working through the core as we crunch and lower. All right, here we go. On this next exhale, we're holding this crunch and bringing my right knee up to left elbow, extending through the arm and returning to center. Same thing on the other side. Exhale, crunch, twist, knee comes to elbow, arm comes through, return, and inhale, come down. And I always like to mention that we want to avoid straining the neck. We're gently cradling our head in our hands, and if you find that you're putting some extra pressure on the neck, you can always do a smaller crunch. You don't have to crunch up quite as high. We're heading into our last rep of this exercise as we turn through the torso, extend through that arm, return and back to center. Beautiful job. You can release those hands from behind your head, bring them to your sides. And from here, we'll create a little ball by bringing our knees towards our chests, creating some momentum, keeping the rib cage down, a tight core and a C curve to the spine, rocking to a seated position. And from here, we're coming down onto the forearms for our next exercise. Give yourself a chance to get comfy and get set. Let's bring those knees up into a tabletop position, 90-degree angle. We'll be extending through the right leg while keeping the left leg at that 90-degree angle and alternating sides. As I extend, I'm taking the leg down. The heel is still hovering over the ground, about an inch or so away from the mat. As I maintain this strong core position, We have one more left on each side, and as you return to tabletop, we'll bring those knees together, feet together, and head into a corkscrew variation, dropping those knees over to one side, extending as far out as you can as you pass through center, and over to the other side where you'll return to tabletop. Beautiful job shifting your weight from hip to hip as you move through this corkscrew, alternating sides as we go. No worries if you can't fully extend through the center. You can keep a soft bend at all times. One more heading in the opposite direction, shifting that weight onto the hips and back to center. Wonderful job. You can lower the torso down, bring those knees to chest. Rocking from side to side over those back extensor muscles, giving yourself a nice rebound breath. And from here, we'll create a little tension, start moving ourselves into this ball shape, rocking to seated, and turning into our side plank exercise, which is up next. Planting the palm on the mat, bottom leg is bent, top leg is extended, and my arm will rest alongside that top leg as I come in for a side arch, pressing through the knee and the palm, lifting through the leg as I bring the arm down and back up and return to seated. Wonderful job. Let's do that again. Reaching over, pressing through the palm and the knee, lift and lower, and return. Wonderful lateral flexion exercise. We're heading into another one, and we're adding a layer 2 element here. After the leg lift and lower, we'll plant that foot and lift through the knee, bring it towards our elbow, return to side arch, and come back down. There was a lot of movement happening on that one. If you're more comfortable staying in that side arch layer 1 exercise where after the leg lift you come back down, you're more than welcome to stay there. If you're feeling adventurous, you can lift through the knee and reach towards your elbow before returning to seated. Wonderful job. This is our last rep on this side of the body. Whether you're incorporating that final layer or not, we'll meet back at the seated position and swivel around to set up on the other side. The setup is the same on this side. Our bottom leg is bent, top leg extended, and I'm up on my palm. Resting arm is extended along with the leg. Side arch, leg lift and lower. We'll do that for a few reps at first just to warm up this side before we throw in that extra layer. Heading into side arch, leg lift and lower, side arch, and return to center. Beautiful job. Let's do that one more time. On this next rep, if you feel like throwing in that final piece, after the leg lift and lower, we'll plant that foot, lifting through the knee, bring it towards the elbow, return to side arch before lowering to seated. Coming down gently and slowly and heading into our final repetition of this exercise. You are doing an amazing job. Finishing up that final side arch before lowering ourselves down gently, and we'll go ahead and turn, come off of your wrists for a moment. We'll readjust ourselves and head into a tabletop position on hands and knees with wrists under the shoulders and knees under hips. We'll be reaching out through the right arm, left leg, Taking both limbs over in opposite directions, return to center, sweep the arm around as the leg bends, return to center and back down. Same thing on the other side. We have a bird dog, swerving over in opposite directions, back to center, sweeping through the arm as the leg bends, back to center, and down into tabletop. Amazing. Let's do that again. Reaching through the right arm, left leg, swerving over in opposite directions, back to center, sweeping the arm as the leg bends, and returning to tabletop. Other side, bird dog into swerve, back to center, sweeping through the arm, bending through the knee, center, and return to tabletop. Hang in there with me. We have one more set of this, one more rep on each side. Bringing that arm back around, returning to tabletop. And from here, we're setting up for the next exercise. We're moving through the hips now, keeping those knees bent. We're opening through the right hip, extending the leg out to the side, return with a bend in the knee and back to center. Let's do the other side, opening through the left hip, extension, rebend, and return. Wonderful job. And if that extension is too much, you can stay in that fire hydrant position and just open and close the angle there. Continuing to alternate sides as we move through this hip exercise. These can tend to be more challenging than some of the other movements that we do, specifically because we have some smaller muscle groups that are opening and closing the hip. So give yourself a lot of grace. If it's difficult, you're not alone. Sometimes it just takes some extra time to really condition those outer hip muscles, but it's amazing for the hips. It's great for mobility and strength, keeping us injury free. Wonderful job. We're opening wide through the knees now that we've finished that set, and we're coming back and down into child's pose, arms reaching out in front of the body. Now that we're settled at center, I want you to go ahead and walk yourself to the right, hand over hand, giving yourself a nice side stretch, stretching through the lats and the back of the shoulder. Let's head over to the other side, walking hand over hand, getting a nice deep stretch in the back of the right lat and shoulder area. And heading back to center, where we'll do one final child's pose stretch before slowly coming out of this position, bringing those knees back under the hips, coming off of your hands. And that will conclude our session for today. Thank you again so much for joining me. I really love doing these workouts with you guys, and I will catch you next time. Bye.